What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kempo with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. I have a super dynamic guest, very inspiring. He is an overcomer, a survivor. He's an example of strength, and he's also a published author of A Bump in the Road. Joining us from New Jersey and fresh out of Ramapo
Ramapo.
College of New Jersey. Please welcome Mike Caprio. Mike, thank you for joining us today. Can you please introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Yep. So my name is Michael Caprio. I'm from Packard, New Jersey, Sussex County. It's like in the northern top left corner. Born and raised in Jersey my whole life, so that's nothing really has changed there. And yep, I went to Ramapo College. I graduated in 2020. I walked in 2021. And during the pandemic of 2020, which we all still have fresh in our memories, that was very
unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I had a unique opportunity come along where I was able to write my book and have it published. So I have my hardcover copy here. And basically, if you want me to jump into what the background of my story is and what I wrote, is that okay?
Yeah, please do. Please share. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Love
So
it.
yeah, when I was 18 years old, I was diagnosed with a rare genetic condition called Familial Adenomatous Polyposis, FAP for short, because that's a mouthful to explain there. And what FAP is it affects a gene in my body, and the gene causes me to develop polyps, and they multiply rather than stopping them. So if for anyone who doesn't know, especially probably the younger audience, just people my age never understand this,
Yeah.
is polyps when you get older, it's something that's a little more common when you're in your 40s to 50s. You would get screened for a colonoscopy, and screenings can save lives, because if they find polyps before they get too big or cancerous, they can remove them. So in what a polyp is it's a benign growth. It's not cancerous yet, and it could become cancerous. So in my regard, if you have like one or two of them, it could be a big deal depending on how big they are. At 18 years old, after I got my genetic test, I had to get a colonoscopy to make sure that the genetic test was accurate. And I was 18, so I was able to see the results. I remember my mom didn't want me to see them. She was trying to tell the doctors, does he really have to see it? I did, yeah. And my large intestine, it looked like bubble wrap. There was like 1,000 little bumps all up and around. So I did indeed have, yes. So with my condition, it's not so much a matter of if I'll have cancer, but when. The average median age for people with FAP to develop cancer is like between 30 and 50. For me, my specific case, with how many polyps showed up on my colonoscopy results at 18 years old, I would say I'm 25 now, so it's 6 years post surgery. Pretty crazy to think about, but 6 years post surgery, I'd probably be dead or dying at this point. So it was very serious for me. I probably wouldn't have been in that 30 to 50 age range. I probably would have been younger, which is kind of typical from my family history. It's a genetic condition, so it goes back, 4 generations. My grandma had it, my mom has it, my aunt has it, I have it, my grandma's mom had it, and my grandma's sister had it. So we have a very long history with it.
All the women passed it to you then, huh?
Yeah, I'm the only guy in the family with it. That is an ongoing joke we have, because we try to make humor of it. It's an unfortunate situation. It is what it is, but we called ourselves the club.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I read that in your bio. It's great that you can give each other support like that. I mean, interestingly enough, or ironic enough, my fiance is getting his colonoscopy tomorrow, and his father has polyps and had cancer. So, he's going to go get screened to make sure he doesn't have any of that have any of those symptoms. So, for your case, it's good that you caught it sooner. I can't imagine that at such a young age. Like, how did you handle that? Like, was that hard for you?
Oh yeah, it was very difficult. I remember the moment, and I wrote about it in the book. It's actually the opening part of chapter 1. Is I'm sitting on the couch, and it's like when my mom. So I'm a senior in high school at the time. I have immature thoughts going through my head. Like, what am I going to do on the weekends? Who am I going out and drinking with my friend? Like stupid juvenile stuff, right? So like this is the first time I ever got something thrown at me that was pretty serious. And when my mom first told me, oh, we have to go to New York City to get tested for you, I thought, well, going to New York City, that's kind of weird for a blood test. But then she told me your brother had to get it done, and he did. That wasn't a lie. And he was fine. So I was like, okay. So my mom was doing a good deal of like trying to protect how much information I got all at once, because obviously it's a lot.
Right.
So I go into the city. I didn't think much, and I even said that in the book. I was worried about playing Call of Duty later with my friends. Like it was an inconvenience to my day at the time. Not even like thinking about what the potential severity of the situation would be.
Sure.
So then, a couple weeks go by. I was told like 2 weeks the results would come back. And 2 weeks later, I just kind of remembered out of like a random moment, and I remember asking my mom when she was making dinner, and she was like caught off guard by it, and then she told me like, "Oh, I haven't heard anything yet." And like looking back on it now, I didn't think anything in the moment, but looking back on it, my mom knew then that my results were positive, and she just didn't know how to tell me yet. And I was in the middle of my senior year at the time, so her justification for it, made sense, because I had a lot of fun memories my senior year that maybe would have been tainted if I was sitting there worrying about everything that was going to happen in the coming months. It was more towards the end of my senior year when I was debriefed on it and I had to get the full disclosure. So my mom told me that the results came back positive. My mom and dad told me on the couch. I remember it was like a Saturday morning. My parents never wake me up early, and they came into my room at like 9 o'clock, and my dad had a somber look on his face. I thought he was going to say someone in the family died or sick. That's like where my mind went. It wasn't even thinking about me. And
Sure.
then he said nothing like that. He just said, we need to talk. And I could tell I wasn't in trouble. And it was something a little more serious. So I didn't really know what to expect. And then my mom tells me that I have it, right? And in the book, I kind of write like I'm spacing out and I'm trying to like really like get a grip on what they're saying. And I'm like
Right.
reading their body language, trying to see how serious it is. And I'm thinking to myself, my mom's like, "Do you have any questions?" after she tells me. And I'm like, I don't know, everybody's fine, right? Like grandma's fine, you're fine, Aunt Ree's fine. Like, what's there really to worry about? So I didn't really like, I kind of brushed it off after that. And I didn't really start doing research into my condition. But then and I also read about that in the book, that was like a really difficult part, is when I started to Google it.
Yeah.
Curiosity got the best of me. And, for any person who's like a hypochondriac or OCD, Google or WebMD could be your worst nightmare.
Yes, it
So
is.
and my condition is very serious, and unfortunately, a lot of people with my condition, like I'm very lucky. My family, I have a great group of surgeons, which I could get into a little later. And my family has known about this since going back to the 1970s. So when I was born, my parents knew that I had to get tested. So like there was all the screenings and like it was all there. We had everything. We had all the plan Bs ready in case we had to do it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So obviously it would be great if I didn't have it, but we weren't just like blind to it. And a lot of people get blindsided by it,
Sure.
like you don't even know it's in your family history, because sometimes spontaneous gene mutations can happen with FAP. So like there's family history isn't the only thing to it. And we actually know somebody, a family friend, who had the spontaneous gene happen to them. And, and they winded up reaching out to us, just looking for doctors and resources and stuff like that. They're doing better now, thankfully.
That's
But
good. That's good.
yeah, that's just like one example. Like those things do happen. So in my regard, I was very lucky, but I didn't realize that at the time. So I'm just sitting there reading all these horror stories and I'm freaking out. I'm thinking to myself, like, and I get angry too. I'm like, why were my parents hiding this? This is obviously a lot more serious than they're letting on and all that. So, I told my mom one day, because after I read that stuff, my behavior started to change. That's when I started really internalizing everything. I was like, wow, this is serious. Like my life might never be the same again. I might not
Yeah.
even wake up after the surgery. Like that, this is all like a lot to process. So then my mom noticed and she asked me, and she kind of figured I did. She knows me.
Yeah.
And I told her I did, and I told her I was a little angry. I said, I'm like, why wasn't I told about these things? This seems a lot more serious than what I've been led on, to hear. And then that's when she told me, she's like, I get your concerns, they're all valid and everything, but you just need to talk to Dr. Gorfine, my surgeon. She's like, he's the best. They've been working on us for a long time. You have to trust him. You're going to meet him. And when you meet him, you can ask all your questions. And then if you still feel like we haven't given you the right amount of information, then you could, bring it up to us.
Yeah. Deanna here with Label Free Podcast. I don't know if you've heard about this new, innovative, creative, convenient, diverse product called All Things Clean. So let me give you a quick demo. And I'm going to actually have my mom come in here with me. Mom, can you come here? Did you see how this is stuck to your wall effortlessly?
That is awesome. I am so excited. I just looking at this. Go ahead, put that up. Let me see how that works.
This is the one board they have. And so they have a whiteboard as well. And so here, you unroll it. and then you put it on the wall. Mom, you want to help me with this?
Sure.
And so all you do is put it on the wall. There you go. And now you can do whatever you want with the markers. So, Mom, what do you think this would be good for?
First of all, with work, the endless possibilities. Think about it, if you're at a trade show and you don't want to bring a lot of stuff with, you can put this up there, you can write some stuff on there. You know, when you're at work, you have these impromptu meetings, grab this, slap it up on the wall, do some brainstorming, fixing
We have some
equipment.
birthdays coming up in our family.
Oh my gosh, happy birthday.
I think it's Louis. Our nephew's birthday.
Happy birthday. Think about it, you would go around the whole room and people can come in and everybody can sign it. I'm really excited. I'm gonna be using this.
I know. I'm very excited too.
Deanna, I want to see how easily this peels off. Let's just make sure. They say easy on, easy off. Holy cow, look at that.
You guys, have you not seen how great this product is? For at home, at the office, presentation, wherever. I have a special exclusive discount for you. They're giving me 15% off with free shipping and free markers. The code label15 at cleaners.com. That's right, 15% off, free shipping, free markers at cleaners.com.
And the possibilities are endless.
So how did you, I mean, obviously you've turned, like you've got a great attitude, you know, and I can't imagine like being younger and being hit with all that, you know, so young, and how just kind of that evolution of coming to terms with it. So like what did that look like for you? Because I'm sure you take everybody on the journey in your book, but can you tell the audience how, I mean, because I'm sure you didn't have a great attitude at first.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So what was a turning point for you to like turn that around and kind of just say, hey, I'm gonna make the best of this?
Yeah, so my rock bottom moment is what really made me wake up. I ebbed and flowed, you know, I would have moments where I felt like, okay, I can handle this, moments where, you know, the highs and lows of the situation.
Sure.
But when it really came to a head for me, so my first surgery was 9.5 hours. I was under the knife for, so it was July 10th, 2015. So I was under the knife for 9.5 hours. When I woke up from my surgery, I had limited pain medicine. I didn't have none, but it was not what I should have had. So I was suffering from like violent spasms and, you know, like convulsions and stuff like that when I was in the hospital. And then it was a very tough 11 days, and 11 days in the hospital is a very, very, very long time. It might not sound that bad. It didn't even sound that bad to me at first, but it really is. So the hospital was like a tale of two halves, where the first half I was abusing pain medicine. The days were going by quick and I thought, oh, this is nothing. But then and I really think this had a lot to do with it, you know, after I got weaned off the pain medication, time dragged. It got a lot harder. You know, pain was there. I just had to suck it up. I had to, you know, walk and get my strength back. And, you know, the hard part of recovery comes in where you have to work for your health back. And that's an aspect that they really understand. So I thought when I was leaving the hospital, I'd be going home and things would get, you know, be getting a little better, at least in the comfort of my home. And it didn't really change that much, you know, like I got home, I was bedridden. I couldn't even sleep in my own bed. So that was like the first blow on me, right? Like I had staples in my stomach. I couldn't sleep in my bed. So I had to kind of like not stretch too far back to stretch my abdominals out and all that. So like, you know, had to sleep in bed, had to have my parents, you know, walk me around the house like they were my assisted crutch, you know?
Yeah.
So that takes a lot on your independence and how you feel about yourself and your self-esteem. And that was a tough part. You know, I was always very self-conscious about how I looked. And at this moment in time, I was like 130 pounds. I was living with an ostomy for the first 3 months because the surgery was so long that I had to give my intestines time to heal before they could reconnect me. So that was a whole different story.
That is humbling.
I could get into the intricacies of my surgery in a second. So I'm going to just kind of go into my rock bottom moment first. But so when I was on the couch, you know, I was kind of pushing my family away, the people who cared about me the most, you know, and I viewed myself as such a burden in the moment. I thought that I was a burden on my family. I thought they had to take care of me. I thought they didn't like taking care of me. And this is all a delusion. This is a delusion when you're very sick mentally. I reflect on this and I think of this as a very dangerous time in my recovery, because I really believed that my family would be better off without me, which is so far from the truth. It's not even funny, but I really believed that in the time. So like my brother would try to talk to me on the couch, I would ignore him. My mom would try to talk to me, ignore her. Dad, you know, every effort, last ditch effort they could put a smile on my face, nothing was working. I didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like the only time I was happy was when I was asleep, and when I woke up, it was just reliving the next hell all over again. So I was I was at a point where I didn't care anymore in my recovery. Like up until this point, I would care. I would have emotional breakdowns where I'd cry and I'd be, like, why is this happening to me and all this stuff. But then I just reached a point at home where there wasn't no crying, there wasn't even self pity. It was just defeat. Like I had
Yeah.
waved the white flag mentally. It's like my brain just kind of pushed the I give up button. And I remember my mom kind of caught wind of that. And, she asked me one day in like a heart to heart, and she said, you could tell me anything that's going on in your mind. Please tell me. I'd rather you tell me than not tell, like, than something bad happen.
Right. Right.
So, I'm sitting there on the couch and I'm like, do you really want to hear what I'm thinking right now? And she said, yes, please. That's why I'm talking to you. So how I felt in the moment is I said, if I knew all this was going to happen, I wish I was never born. And I just kind of said it like that. And, instant regret once I said it. I saw how it affected my mom. It just completely took the life out of her.
Yeah.
I saw her face go blank and conversation stopped. She got off the couch and walked out onto the deck. And I didn't even really process what was going on yet because I was still in my sulking phase. And then my dad came home and my mom was on the deck crying, and, he knew something was wrong. He comes home, he goes out into the deck, talks to my mom, and then he comes back in the house and he just looks at me and he's like, your mom's out there crying because did you really tell her you wish you were never born again? And I said, yeah, and I just kind of said it nonchalantly, thinking it wasn't a big deal. And my dad said, he's like, she gave you this condition. That's how she feels.
Yeah.
She's been spending every night, the last 6 months crying, wondering if she made the right choice, and wondering if they should have had kids, and if it was even worth it. So my mom behind closed doors was going through just as much as me, if not worse. And I totally was blind to it. And it wasn't like I hated my parents at the time. It wasn't like I was doing this to stick it to my parents.
Right.
Like I said, I really thought that the world would be better off without me. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, and then I talked about this in the book. Like when I was in the hospital, like really traumatizing things, like I reanalyzed them over and over and over and over. And I kind of like, I was talking about how it's like a primal thing, like I wrote a little passage where I say, from a standpoint, it seems really ingenious that you relive traumas over and over again so that you can, for survival purposes, that you don't have to be faced with the same situation again, or if you are, it's deadly. So like I write about how that's cool, but in modern day situations, it can be abused. So I wrote about how in the hospital, all these things that were happening to me were things that I wanted to forget. And all I could do was just analyze it over and over, over and over, over and over on a loop of like horrible things that I never wanted to remember again.
Yeah.
And then in that moment, I saw the flip side of how important it was, because as much as I didn't want to relive that moment where I literally broke my mom's heart, I was reliving it. And then all of a sudden I was like, wow, like my family really needs me. Like if I give up, my family is going to fall apart. And then it all started hitting me all at once. And I was like, wow, this is bigger than me. And I was like, I can't really, I can't give up. I can't let my mom feel like this. What would she do? And then all of a sudden solutions started clicking, right? So I had this really rock bottom moment where I was never looking for solutions and I was just kind of catatonic. And then I had this moment that really kind of woke me up, like hearing my mom cry on the deck and seeing my dad look at me all disappointed and just kind of really realizing how serious this was.
Yeah.
I
Like an
was
out of
like,
body
wow.
experience. You're splitting
Yeah,
out and everything, seeing what's going on.
exactly. So I was really looking at it from an outsider's perspective, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, if I give up, my mom won't be able to live with herself.
Yeah.
It suddenly realized, yeah, it could be a horrible domino effect. And I was like, I can't do this. So I said, things might suck right now, but I need to start putting on a fake happy face, doing the things that may or may not help me. I don't know if they will, but I got to try, right? I got to try for my mom. My grandma played a big role in my recovery because, so like family dynamics, like my mom is the type who would have not been open. Like I'm very open about it.
Yeah.
I didn't get that from my mom. I got that from my grandma. My grandma was an advocate for our condition. She always did like not experimental, but voluntary. That's a better.
Sure.
Voluntary procedures to further research for our condition. She was always reaching out to support groups. It's how she winded up, again, turning a negative into a positive, and it's how she gave her life meaning. And my grandma was an inspiration for me because, she was the fun grandma. She was not hindered at all by our condition. She would always go to the casinos and she was always dancing at weddings. And
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, she'd be the type
That's
of like
awesome.
Christmas dinner for the grandchildren. Like, you know, she'd sneak you off into the kitchen and give you $100 bill while your mom wasn't there and say, "Shh, don't tell your mom."
Nice.
She was that type of grandma. So I always admired her and the way she lived her life. And for the first 18 years of my life, I didn't know anybody in my family had this condition. So then I started to realize, okay, maybe there is possibilities for a normal life. You know what I mean? So I started to think like that, and my grandma started to plant that seed in my head because, you
Good.
know, when my mom used up all her sick days and couldn't take care of me anymore, my grandma did. And then my grandma would pick my brain. She would have those conversations with me to see where I was at and gauge where I was at and try to push me towards, you know, a path that she thought I could handle and that would be helpful for me.
Yeah.
And she planted those seeds a lot in my head. So I'm
Awesome.
very thankful for her for doing that. And, you know, it kind of came back full circle later in my life
Yeah. With the book.
with my mom. Yeah, well, not just the book actually. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep talking, but I want to get this last part out too. So full circle, what I was saying, it's even a chapter in my book. My mom not being open and like just this whole what I've been talking about for like the last 10 minutes with consequences and everything, and like, you know, realizing how much more important this was. I really got to see it 4 or 5 years down the road because, you know, after that I started doing little things, like I was going to the gym, and then, you know, I
Good.
never thought I'd be able to put weight on again, especially muscle, especially with my
Right.
condition. And that was a lie, right? So I was like, oh, that's another lie that I told myself in my head, and that I could scrap that. And, you know, that was one more hurdle. And then after I started overcoming all these hurdles, I realized, you know what, like there really isn't that many. Like you can achieve a lot. And it just kind of showed me to keep going down this path and being open about it because it was giving my life meaning and passion that I really never had before. So then my mom started seeing that, and she was always the quiet one, my grandma, the
Sure.
loud one. And, you know, she was the type that, you know, if she never had her, she was the type where in the beginning, in my rock bottom moment, those 6 years ago, if she had to go get a checkup for our condition, she probably would. She would have just accepted her fate, and
Oh,
she said, "I
wow.
live." Yeah, she was one of those
That's
types,
terrible.
and I mean, it's like it's a philosophy in my family. I mean, my aunt Ronnie, my grandma's sister, she kind of made the same choice, but it's because her husband was old. Like she was in her late
Old
70s
school.
when she
Yeah.
had it again, and you know, they're a family. We're a family of faith, so you know, it was just kind of like when my time comes, my time comes. And I know that's a very bleak look, but that's how she felt back then.
Sure.
But luckily, because I went down this path of that I've been on, you know, this journey the last 6 years, we had a moment where during the pandemic, shortly after my grandma passed away in 2019, it was a promise that my grandma made my mom made. She said, "You can't give up on Michael. You have to get your check, you know, your
Yeah.
checkup." So my mom goes to get her checkup. She has a very complicated medical history. They didn't even want to wind up knowing what exactly happened to her back in the day. Long story short, they find something and they need to operate on her, and they need to reverse her from what she had to what I currently have. And that was
Okay.
something that they didn't think possible back in the day.
Yeah.
So, you know, I understand the severity of all this, and I'm like, wow, thank God she got checked, but now she has to go through all this, and I start worrying, kind of like how she
Right.
worried about me. You know, I was like, can my mom handle this? She's going to have to live with the ostomy for a little bit. I know how much she hated that. She's going to
Yeah.
have 2 surgeries, and if things go well, you know what I mean. So I was like worrying about her and how she was going to handle it. And then when the time came, she kind of embodied the spirit that I had during
Yeah.
it. You know, like she took a lot of worry off my mind when I was away at college, you know, wondering how her recovery was going.
You were an example from for your mother, which is absolute. It's like it's like a miracle that you gave her. You know.
Exactly. And my mom at the time, you know, she said this recently, like 2 years ago during the pandemic when I was taking care of her, because she got rushed out of the hospital and everything and all that crazy stuff. And, you know, she said, she's like, I don't honestly know if I would have did this if you hadn't done everything that you did. And,
Aw.
you know, I just said, I'm really glad we don't have to find out, you know, I'm really
Yeah,
glad.
for real. We're getting
It's
really close. We're getting here on time, so I want
okay.
to start wrapping things up.
Mhm.
So, what is your, can you show your book again? A
Yeah,
Bump
of
in the
course.
Road.
Hmm.
Bump in the Road. I can't wait to. You guys just check. You got to check this book out. Can you plug all your links?
Yeah. So I have a website. Do I need to type them or anything in here,
No, no, no,
or
no. I'm gonna put
so,
all the links in the
gotcha,
show notes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, my website is www.mikecaprioauthor.com. And on my website, it has my Medium account. You could follow me on Medium for my write-ins, just, about life, a little less serious than my book. Try to have a little more fun. So you can follow my Medium, my Instagram account. I have two. My personal one where I kind of, post less book related stuff, more personal stuff in my life is Mike Caprio __. My personal write-in account, which centers around all my write-in endeavors and stuff around my book, is Mike _Caprio, or no, Mike Caprio _ author.
Author. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I'll make sure I put all those links in the show notes. So you guys don't hesitate to reach out to Mike if you have any questions about the condition, or have any just, want some inspiration from him in regards to getting through what he got through. And look at his incredible attitude now. He's just a source of strength. So do you have any last words of wisdom or advice you'd like to leave with the audience?
Yes. So we talked about attitude in the beginning, and I'm actually going to share the epigraph of my book because this is a quote that my mom sent me this card after my time in the hospital. And this is a quote that she felt embodies kind of how I've lived my life. And this is a quote that means a lot to me. So it's kind of long, but I'll read it. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think, say, or do. It is more important than appearances, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes.
I love
And
that.
I think for me, that is definitely the biggest takeaway with my life. I think that we all have more responsibility in our day-to-day choices and our relationships with people than we even realize. I would challenge everybody to reflect a little bit, right? I would reflect on your relationships, how much you mean to people, even if you don't really realize it. Just realize that there are a lot of people out there
Sure.
who would greatly, let's put it this way, there's a choice in your hands. If I didn't go down my path, my mom might not be here today. My life would be totally worse than it is right now. Worse than it was 6 years ago. That rock bottom moment would have to been updated because it would have happened again and it would have been worse. But I'd made a choice to, be proactive and take on the challenges head on in my life. It definitely took honesty, transparency, and a deal of courage, but it has changed not only my life for the better, but the people's lives around me. And I think that if we all act on that on an individual level, society could be much better for all of us.
Beautiful. Thank you for those incredible words. And I understand that you're working on some new projects, so please keep us updated on what you have coming out next, because I know you said you're going to be having some new books. We'd love to have you back and share that with the audience. So thank you very much for being a guest today, Mike, and keeping that ray of light for your family and for others, because it's needed. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it. And I love the conversation. It was great coming on.
Thank you. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Kemple with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, rate, review, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.